what happens when the tide comes in and the water level's high. You can see the water levels probably, we'll go take a close look. These are sold all over. They're, look, a little pastry cup, pretty firm little cup. They're not flaky or they don't crumble. And then they're filled with what's almost a gelatinous-like creamy substance of not an overly sugary thing, but sweet. Sometimes they have cinnamon, sometimes they have chocolate in them. Don't know that this one has anything in particular in it. There he goes past me, and he'll stop before hitting that post. And then he just comes back on the right side to make the return. A clever setup. I've seen them before. She either has a broken ankle or some problem with her foot, or an even more serious chronic or permanent problem. Notice if you slide the window up, it goes up into that cavity up there, as does the blind. Buildings like that may just be big wine port storage buildings. You pull on the string here that then rings that bell for the conductor that tells him you want to get off. He's leaving to do something, which may mean that I have the authority to continue on driving by myself. But I think I'll wait until he shows back up. This, of course, must be the tram barn. Passeio do carro electric. Apparently a problem with the key, so he's got one of the mechanics here. Yesterday told me that here's a little fishing village. I think this is it. Well, this little fishing complex of boats. But then a marina was built next to it that is just for like tourist and amateur boaters. But it was her opinion that all around this village they had essentially destroyed an atmosphere that could have been used for tourist promotion. That's interesting. We were stopped for a light and everything shut down, it sounded like. But then as soon as the light turned, he flipped something and we went instantaneously. That's the end of the tram line. He confirms that the museum is closed for some reason today. Hell, all I know, it may be closed indefinitely. And I think we're now in the more upscale green area. And as evidenced by that is this park. I think we are also on the ocean now. So we'll wander through here for a while and come back and catch the next tram back. This is just looking down the outer road in the outer harbor area. Pretty park to wander through. That's interesting folk art. We'll go take a look at that. Park art. Trying to make it lighthearted and easy. And here I believe this lady is riding on the back of a seal who's balancing a ball and is the fountainhead. Here, of course, are modern and upscale, sometimes even quite elegantly pretty homes. Here, an advertising kiosk that rotates. Probably reflects the Catholic Church baptizing a heathen. And the rain has started once again. The trees will filter it a bit. We'll walk down further. Here's somewhat curious, but nonetheless pretty fountain water feature. I'm unable yet to decipher what the subject, if any, is in it. And from this side it doesn't disclose its content or subject matter any better than the other side. This is about as close as I intend to get to the ocean. It's raining hard enough that I'm not going to get soaked just for nothing. Tour buses can do whatever it is they call what they do. And this looks like probably a restoration of what once was a fort backed by a church. A very typical combination. As we enter this most elegant of bathrooms is the men's urinal stand, which accommodates 6 men who are quite able to chat amicably with most of each other. And some very pretty tile work up here that we can see. Yeah, very, very lovely design for a bathroom. We're not going to get any light, but we'll look inside of this old bathroom with a bidet and a toilet, all with their beautiful enamel paintwork. And here a sink. We've seen modern examples of that. Here a nice close-up of these tiles. Notice it's composed of 4 tiles. They're an idea of a window. This building, and in these smaller rooms a smaller tile treatment, but an allusion to the larger tiles. Very nice. And I think I read about this in one of the guidebooks. This is called Patrimonio Municipal, Omens, and I guess on the other side might be women. We'll take a look. We're looking in the Señoras. We'll just look inside briefly. A little more elegant. They all have their own individual place. And here we see the same layout, the bidet and the toilet and the sink. These trees, and maybe even more so when they're wet, give a very pretty look as the various levels of bark ooze off of them. Wherever you go, there are always the fishermen, amateurs, hardy amateurs, or professionals who cannot resist the opportunity to go out and fish. And you wonder if the stormy conditions offer a particular advantage for a certain kind of fish. Notice how that water plummets right over the top of that breakwater. Even looks like some of that breakwater is designed to allow water to, the pressure of the wave to expend itself through the walls. See what I mean? Notice how this quayside ring is eroding itself away, but because it's been flipped back and forth for so many years, or decades at least at one time, it's actually worn round grooves, 2 sets of them, or a set of them rather. Here, what looks to be an old triple fountain. Certainly it would have been the site of a fountain for a long, long time, providing this area with water. Here in its context, a nice old house. It'd be interesting to know its history, surrounded by all of the new construction. This little set of houses is interesting because it reflects and reminds me of the old Hermosa and Redondo Beach and Manhattan Beach, when you had all those old little beach houses there. And occasionally fixed up. Here, just the faces have been fixed up, those 2 in particular, and those 2 down there, while the one in the middle and the one on the far right haven't been touched at all. And look at the detail on the roofs of a couple of these, as well as those details on the front facings of a few little statues. All of that, of course, misting and devoid on these other buildings. A monument to somebody who uses a spade and dresses sparsely, at least from the waist up and maybe the waist down. That may just be a G-cloth, I'm not sure. It reminds me of miners that you see in National Geographic and other magazines working in Bolivia and other places illegally, or in Africa. This is apparently a bird sanctuary over here, trying to stand out of the rain. These little islands. I think those are our great blue herons or something akin to that. It's not, it's just what. There's a great blue heron. The other is that bird I saw a family of down on the California Colorado River kayak a couple, 3 years ago. They're rarely seen in the wild, pretty ones, isn't he? And he's not afraid of anything bigger than he is. He's all puffed up too. Maybe that time of year for him. What gorgeous colorings. Yikes. I think this is the old fishing village that the girl at the hostel talked about. And its accompanying marina of fish boats. And apparently around it everything has been bought up to be converted into, or has been converted into, tourist residence places. And included in that concept is this new marina over here, which she found to be antithetical to the potential of tourism. The barrels make for very interesting tables, as well as this is a photograph of the library or the bookstore's stairway. Here's another clever use of the barrels, taking the top and then the spigots and using them as a chandelier. You could also put a light center in there. And I've discovered that the darkness on these is actually burnt. Whatever that gelatinous material is, this is a burnt portion of it. Kind of like the outside of a roasted marshmallow. The irony of this funicular is when you get to the top, then you take an elevator to get to the top. This was a nobleman's house built in the 17th to the 18th century, and then bought in the late 1800s by the city for public services offices. Here's a small, narrow old street that has not been significantly restored at all. It's between the main bridge and the railroad station. Off to the right as you should be going back to it. I'm taking it purposely. This is an interesting old narrow street with a lot of little restaurants, completely unrestored, although it looks like they're getting ready to do something up there. Here, cute little shop, artist shop obviously, doing avant-garde kinds of things. And that may be exactly what the street turns out to be. But you can see, very, very old, very, very unrestored. Having said that, I come across this newly restored building. Here's some fairly old, but quite pretty and elaborate tile work remaining on this old building. Here's what looks like an old, large water fountain, in other words, place to get water in the local neighborhood here. Certainly that inner part's either been refurbished or redone recently. It'd be interesting to know what those metal supports were for. Did they hold lamps?